Now welcome to another lightning response video, where this time I'm going to try and answer a few different questions. Some of them I'll just give a truly quick or lightning response to. Others maybe a bit more long-winded response, like this first one from Alum Vaughn, which is a tad on the long side. So I'll just read the first paragraph and go from there. Anyway, he said, "Hey Thor, you mentioned about speaking with your wallet in your video, the one yesterday. And I feel that perhaps the best way to help Disney understand how we as fans feel is something different than deciding whether to complain or compliment Disney. Here is my argument. Let's say that everything stays the same. The next movie is the Rey movie, and it is still directed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. Assuming that she has said nothing that refuted what she had said earlier, why should we as Star Wars fans annoyed at her and this movie pay to go to the box office to see it? Wouldn't the best way to help Disney understand how we feel and what we want is simply not to go see it?" And yes, not going to see it would be the best thing you could do to make your point or to send a message to Disney and Lucasfilm. And I did mention in the video yesterday that if you want, you should vote with your wallet and not go and see it at all. Or to, as you suggest later on in your comment here, you should watch it on Disney Plus when it's released there, so you're not kind of directly paying for the movie, if you will. Though I suppose they'll still know you clicked on it and watched it for whatever that's worth to them. But either way, I agree with you to absolutely vote with your wallet, and above anything and everything else, it's what they'll hear or understand the most. The language of money is the only language they speak fluently, and if the box office take is not there, or especially if it flops, that'll be about the end of Rey and her Jedi Order. No threat introduced in the film itself will be greater than the threat of no one going to see it in the theater. And make no mistake here, I'm neither trying to or going to over the next couple of years. I'm not going to try to encourage or discourage people to go and see this movie when and I suppose if it comes out. You do you on this one, and I'll give you my honest and fair take when it comes out, because yes, I will see it. And in yesterday's video, I was responding to a question asking how people who are going to see it in the theater, how they should kind of respond to it. And I thought they should be fair towards it. Because yes, there is a chance, a remote one you may feel, but there is a chance it could end up being a really good movie. Regardless of being something a lot of fans don't want. A lot of fans don't want anything dealing with the sequels, and they especially don't want a film that includes Rey rebuilding the Jedi Order, because they feel she essentially stole that story from Luke. But as I've said before, I'm not going to pass final judgment on something that is still 2+ years away and will end up being who knows what exactly. And I certainly know that what Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy has said in the past is cause for some concern, even though I feel like I need to stress that those comments, the ones about making men feel uncomfortable, that they were from the past, that they were said in 2015 and in the context of a documentary she made about women being abused in Pakistan. And personally, I think men who do anything of the sort should be made to feel more than uncomfortable. However, there are a lot of good men out there in the world who just want to watch a Star Wars movie without potentially being lectured to or made to feel bad about themselves because of the actions of other men. And I'm not saying she's necessarily going to try and do that with the movie. I don't know that she's going to try and make men feel uncomfortable with this Rey film. But I don't think it's impossible that something that is obviously very important to her may spill over into her other work. And that's to say nothing of being worried about her basically having no experience in this sort of thing, or no experience relevant to making a Star Wars movie of all things. And so all around, this just feels like a really odd choice. It feels like Kathleen Kennedy keeping her promise to absolutely see a woman direct a Star Wars movie no matter what. Alright, let's now move on to this comment from Richard Zylokowski, who asked, "Hey Thor, do you think directors are avoiding making Star Wars movies because they won't be given creative control to make the movie they want to make versus what Lucasfilm wants them to make? The director from Dial of Destiny has made some good films, but there's a lot of speculation that he had to add a lot of elements to please Kathleen Kennedy, rather than make a movie that showed respect for the previous movies." And yeah, I definitely think there are a lot of writers and directors out there who are kind of sick and tired of being in the era of remakes and sequels and shared universes and rebooting franchises and all these sorts of things. There are probably a lot of really creative minds out there being suppressed because they're being asked to do this and that, and there's really no studios out there who want to take a risk on brand new things, short of maybe Netflix and Rebel Moon and some other examples, yes. Though that said, on the flip side, I do think there are people who would love and be privileged to do Star Wars. I kind of talk about that a lot, how what you should be looking for are the people who want to be doing Star Wars, who want to make a commitment to it, a multi-year commitment perhaps. Though at the same time, maybe they are trying to come in and having difficulties with Kathleen Kennedy, who wants Star Wars to be a certain thing, and they don't see eye to eye, and they move on. We have had a lot of people come and go or be hired and fired or left for other reasons. It has been an absolute mess at Lucasfilm for the past, well, for as long as Kennedy has been there, basically. Alright, and next up we have this question from Sergeant AJ, who asked, "Hey Thor, I was wondering, what is your take on Hayden Christensen appearing as Anakin's Force Ghost instead of the late Sebastian Shaw in Return of the Jedi? Recently I learned that this special edition change is very controversial, and that there are a lot of takes on how Force Ghosts work in Star Wars. So I am curious to know what's your take on this change and Force Ghosts in general." I am someone who loves Return of the Jedi. It is my favorite Star Wars movie. It will always be my favorite Star Wars movie. But honestly, this doesn't bother me that much. I like that it kind of connects back to the prequels. I think it certainly sucks for the late Sebastian Shaw, of course, and his family and anybody who loved him being in there. But I think it does make sense that if Luke is going to see his father again, he's going to see his father as he was before he was quote-unquote destroyed by Darth Vader. I think Force Ghosts, when they appear to someone, are probably going to appear to them in a way that is comfortable or familiar or whatever it might be. I don't think they have bodies anymore. They don't have that crude matter that Yoda was talking about. They are just that luminous spirit at that point. So what they appear as is probably completely up to them, or maybe it is up to the viewer. Maybe the viewer just kind of perceives them a certain way. Who knows? But for better or worse, I really don't have a problem with the change. Okay, next up here we have this question from QTY1315, who asked, "Hey Thor, here's a simple question. The original plan with Snoke with The Last Jedi was to kill him off so that he could return and reveal himself as Darth Plagueis, which received Abrams' blessing initially. If the next movie had followed through with that plan, do you think The Last Jedi would be seen more favorably?" No, I don't really think so. I think The Last Jedi is seen as unfavorably all on its own, if you will. I don't think anything done before it or after it really changes how people feel about that film, necessarily. That said, would it have made more sense to bring in Plagueis and kind of connect it back to the prequels? Not unlike what I was just talking about with the last question, you kind of want to have those little threads there. I think it would have made more sense, I guess. I don't know how well received it would have been. People would have been just mad you're bringing him in to try to salvage the movie, kind of like they were mad that you brought in Palpatine to salvage the movie. In all reality, for more people to have enjoyed The Last Jedi, it needed to just be a different movie. That's my answer. Alright, next up, this one from Regishel, who asked, "Hey Thor, why do you rarely, if ever, talk about fan films? Star Wars fan films are easily the one part of Star Wars I'm the most excited about, other than maybe the Fallen Order games. Not because they're free, but because they are mostly always better than Disney Plus shows. I've watched so many lately, and I wish people talked about them more instead of just the bad Disney stuff." And I think one of the reasons I don't talk about fan films more, and it's something I've wanted to do, I've had a lot of people ask me, have you watched this? You should watch this. You should get more into it, like you're basically saying here. But I think one of the reasons I don't, and it goes along with what I'm talking about with the Rey movie, where I'm going to tell you what I honestly think about it, good or bad. I can be honest to a fault, I guess. I can be brutally honest at times. I usually am. And so I'm not going to watch a fan film and necessarily just be nice to it, because that doesn't mean that there aren't great ones out there that I wouldn't praise. But I think the last thing I'd want to do is watch somebody's fan film and really not enjoy it at all and then have to say as much. Does that make sense? And this goes for myself as well. I've been doing a lot of kind of projects behind the scenes that I've really wanted to bring out, but I have not been happy with them. And so they just kind of are sitting there and I'm working on them. As I've said before, I want to do more creative things. And so far, those creative things aren't turning out the way I want them to be. So they are not being released to all of you. And so, yeah, that's one of the reasons I don't talk about fan films more. I don't want to crush anybody else's dream, I guess you could say. Though that said, maybe I will try to look more into talking about them and advertising them, because I would love to do that part. I would love to get the word out there about some of these films that I think don't get enough attention. So yeah, maybe that is something I'll look into trying to figure out, I guess. Okay, let's now do this one from Castle Noxiv. I think I'm saying that right. Anyway, they asked, "Hey Thor, what do you think happened to Luke's X-Wing before the Battle of Endor? The Rebel Alliance was planning an attack on the second Death Star. Before they could attack, they needed a strike team to deactivate the shield, and Luke decided to join the strike team when he's a Rebel pilot. The Rebel fleet should have needed every available pilot, especially the skilled ones, so do you think he let someone else borrow it or just left it in the hangar?" I'm going to assume he let someone else use it. And I don't know that it's like his ship. I mean, it is property of the Rebel Alliance, so they absolutely would have wanted someone else in there. You're going to want, as you point out, every basically pilot, and especially skilled pilot, you can get into a ship for that battle. So yeah, I absolutely think Luke would have just let someone else use it, and I'd be curious to know what pilot that was. Okay, we now move on to this one from Blaine, who asked, "Hey Thor, how bad do you think things have to get for Disney to do a Star Wars Marvel crossover? If this was something that was going to happen, what would you like to see?" Well, I personally don't want to see it, though I think the general audience, the normie, whatever you'd like to call them, I think they would probably enjoy this. I don't know. It's funny you ask this because the other day my dad asked me this very same question. He asked me, do you think they'd ever do something like a Star Wars versus Marvel? And I said, God, I hope not. And he was kind of surprised. He thought I would like to see that because I love both of them. And so, I don't know. What would I actually like to see out of it? Again, I don't want to. And I don't know how you would even do it. It just kind of feels incompatible to me. But who knows? If they get desperate enough, I could see them doing something like this. Alright, and then we kind of have a follow-up question from Starvin Marvin, who asked, "Hey Thor, who would win in a fight, peak Luke Skywalker or Wolverine? Disney owns both characters now, so a multiverse X-Men vs. Jedi crossover isn't impossible." And I think this comes down to one big question, that being, can a lightsaber cut through adamantium? Because if the answer is yes, I'm going to give it to Luke. If the answer is no, I'm going to give it to Wolverine. And the next and final question then comes to us from the true Zoalord, who asked, "Hey Thor, I have a question. Are you interested in recommending something like New Warhammer 40k or Warhammer Fantasy? It has one of the best written lores. Have you at least given Warhammer 40k a second chance? I've been asking. I hope you respond." I know next to nothing about Warhammer. It is something I've always wanted to play. Every time I go to my local game or card shop, I always see people playing it, and it looks epic. It looks incredible. I've heard great things about the lore as well, but I have never tried it. And that's not from a lack of wanting. It's just from a lack of opportunity, I guess. Even though, yes, people do play it at the local shop. All that said, before I would ever obviously recommend it, I would need to know a lot more about it. I get sponsorship offers all the time. My inbox is always flooded with companies wanting me to talk about their thing and promote their thing and offering me money, which, sure, I could certainly use. But I am someone who, I don't know, I'm not someone who's going to recommend something just because you pay me, just because you want me to do it. It goes back to what I've been saying throughout the video, I guess. I'm going to tell you what I honestly think. And if one of these companies is going to pay me, I actually have to want to promote their product, even if they pay me a whole lot of money. And obviously, if a company is going to pay you to sponsor them, they don't want your honest opinion, they want your best opinion, if that makes sense. So yeah, eventually, maybe I'll try Warhammer 40k and I'll have good things to say about it. I have been wanting to branch out a little bit with the channel, as I keep saying. I'd love to talk about more things than just Star Wars from time to time. But for now, Warhammer is just something I would like to check out in, hopefully, the near future. Well, for now, that's going to be all I got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think of any of my answers, and tell me if you like this style of video. Do you like the more quick, rapid response question answer session, or the more well thought out one? Whatever the case may be, leave those comments below, ask your questions below, and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.